Hey everybody, welcome back to YAFTV. It is Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023. I'm so glad to be back with you. Thanks for tuning in. I'll start with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution protecting free speech as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence or hatred or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal or medical advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. So glad to be back with you. It's been a few days, so I'm sorry for the delay, but that's the way things go. We made it through this crazy weekend, right, which is, of course, Beltane in the pagan sense, but we get the high satanic holidays. It's been, I think, a rough energy weekend, right? So first I want to say thank you to everybody who supports the channel. Thank you so much for getting us through April. And also, of course, at the beginning of the month, we do the giveaway here on YAFTV, which is C60 Evo capsules, 2 bottles of this given away to 2 different supporters of the channel, randomly selected. For April, the people are Werner and Werner and Rev, and those emails have gone out to you. If you want them, they're coming your way. c60evo.com/YAFTV, 10% off to anybody who watches the channel, and of course 15% off to supporters of the channel. You get a different link sent to you. The code is YAFTV for regular listeners, and this is, of course, one of the most potent antioxidants you can get available on the planet, created at the best lab on the planet. And it is an incredible antioxidant that fights inflammation, gets into your mitochondria, cleans the garbage out. We're talking about DNA assaults we're going to talk about here today on this channel. But anyway, thank you for everybody supporting the channel. And I'm always so glad to be able to give something back. So Werner and Rev, thank you for supporting the channel, and everybody else for this last week of keeping me going. All right, moving in here, we're going to talk about a lot of things. So like I said, we just got through this, crazy end of April is always this awful satanic assault. So I hope you've put on your God's armor and you're like ready to fight evil, and just been doing it all weekend, because it was a heavy weekend energetic wise. We pray for the children. We pray for everybody who got through this weekend. We had the Met Gala go on yesterday, and interestingly, we get Ryan Reynolds and I think his wife or partner Blake Lively were chairing that up, along with what's his name, Lin-Manuel Miranda. And so they were the chairs, and the Met Gala is always a very interesting situation, because you get your high society freaks getting together to plan whatever they're doing and to party hard, and it's a Luciferian event. And so, we just want to say to people like Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, but especially Ryan Reynolds, what is it that came out of his Christmas special? I think it was called Spirited. Good afternoon, Ryan Reynolds, good afternoon. And so we go on from there, and we move on, like over the weekend also in the Northeast. The Met Gala, of course, happens in New York City. Well, in the Northeast also, in Boston, over the weekend, they had SatanCon at the Marriott there in Boston. And SatanCon is the 10th anniversary of the Satanic Temple's event that they have there in Boston. And what's so creepy is they were tearing up Bibles, saying, what could be more creepy? It's SatanCon. And they try to put it out there as trust the science, basically an anti-religious event. But if it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it is a satanic duck. And these people were tearing up Bibles. They're basically saying theocratic, oppression is the end-all evil, and basically a Luciferian agenda, where the Prince of Light, that is Satan, coming through to say, oh no, you're free from religion, and we know we get no free will without actually having a savior. So that happened over the weekend, and so just massive amounts of awfulness over this weekend, but we've survived it and we're moving on. And so let's get into more of the news. We had the Secure the Border Act that just broke, just came out of the Biden regime, tyrannical dictatorship, whatever it is, this thing we're going through, that is actually attempting to end the United States Republic. Well, we get the Secure the Border Act, which, over the weekend we've had so many things happen. Of course, yesterday we had, Sunday late night, but breaking early. We get the what looks to anybody analyzing the situation, a cartel hit job on a border town family there in Cleveland, Texas, where you get multiple people dead, including a 9-year-old child, and this very much looking like a cartel hit. And people are putting it out as another episode of gun violence. And no. On the borders here, these cartel hits are constantly happening against families if they maybe didn't go along with the cartel, if they protested them being on their land. People in the news, you're hearing about it like it's this just happened in a neighborhood. No. It's very rural. Okay, so when they're telling you, the neighbors were complaining about an AR-15 going off in their next door, house. No. This was a very rural situation. Very much looks like a cartel hit. The guy, Francisco, whatever his name is, had been deported 4 times. Very cartel connected, and this gets into everything to do with what's going on with the Secure the Border Act, which is where we're getting Biden saying he's sending 15,000 troops down to the border in Texas, and of course Arizona. And Arizona being the giant trafficking in Texas, just massive cartel ownership of our borders. And so what we hear from Todd Bensman doing the heavy lifting, who's been down there at the border, writing it on the Federalist. I'll link his article below, where basically this Secure the Border Act is these 15,000 troops are really doing crowd control. You hear Mayorkas the other day testifying, saying, we're putting up regional processing centers. These centers are all the UN NGO centers that are trafficking these people across the border, with Title 42 about to end. It ends on May 11th. Title 42 was keeping some people out, because of COVID stuff, still like pandemic rules, can't cross the border, pandemic style. But now that ends on May 11th. So on May 12th, we have huge amounts of people about to cross the southern border. And this is the modern slave trade. And it's being controlled by the UN. It's being controlled by the giant banksters, Cartel Babylon, Cartel Pandora, I've now started calling it, since accessing all that Mike Gill information. This is basically where this is the modern slave trade. They have 350,000 or 345,000 children crossing the border in the last couple of years since Biden got in. 100,000 of them never seen again. They don't know where they are, except you have multiple whistleblowers coming before Congress and saying, they're gone. We can't do anything about it. We're being stopped at every channel to even track these people, but they have been able to track these kids being in slave labor, sex trafficking, everything awful under the sun. And so this Secure the Border Act is just a facade. It's a beard. And basically we have 15,000 Haitians waiting outside Reynosa, in Reynosa, which is just outside McAllen, Texas. That's just a tiny drop in the bucket. But the thing with Haiti is that they've been trying to clear out Haiti for a while. Ever since the giant earthquake, they have been trying to clear out Haiti. Remember when Hillary Clinton's brother opened up the gold mine in Haiti and started, immediately extracting tons of riches out of Haiti, and he's dead now, it turns out. But basically, Haiti is being emptied out for another purpose, and we'll get into that in later videos. There is just basically the modern slave trade here, and that's what we're looking at as we look at Secure the Border Act, which is absolutely the opposite. It's doublespeak, it's reversals upon reversals, and they're lying to you. And so we're going to go from there. I'll get more into that this week, but we want to talk about, I'm going to talk about here, just what I said about there in the beginning, the Met Gala and the, spirited good afternoon. It is basically where we're being so gaslighted all the time by AI. And ever since Chat GPT got in about, it's only been a couple months, maybe 90 days, since the World Economic Forum said we're going full AI. Since they announced the advent of Chat GPT, we get things like Joe Rogan, a fake broadcast put out of Joe Rogan's show, where it was a full show of Joe Rogan completely created by Chat GPT. We get a woman who they claim to kidnap her daughter and for $1 million ransom, created by Chat GPT. We get so many things that are just so egregious. But part of this gets into what is coming to predictively program our minds with what's coming up with AI. And so I'm going to talk about that for a second, because we get Jeffrey Hinton out of Google, leaving Google, very much involved, a senior exec, super involved with DeepMind. Okay, DeepMind is is machine learning of the Google ASI, what is to become an artificial superintelligence, but basically collecting every data of everybody to feed into an intelligence grid that will get to know every single person to create a surveillance grid database that that this man, Jeffrey Hinton, had to leave Google. He testified before Congress this morning saying, I had to leave because this is a massive danger. And what he said is that this danger is against carbon-based life on this planet. Humanity is the huge one, but basically all carbon life. That basically what he said is the combination of digital, big tech, digital surveillance, digital data collection, okay, on the information level, on the feeding the AI, you connect that with biotech's massive attempt to control DNA and connect to that digitally. And of course, we know that digitally they can affect your DNA. They can absolutely affect your DNA through the EMF, 5G systems, all the systems. They can affect your DNA. Well, Jeffrey Hinton came out before Congress and said, you know what, this is literally when we have the biotech trying to control the DNA using digital means, and we have the big tech information systems controlling all data. Well, we're looking at what can be the control of humanity through silicon. And that we're looking at a fight between the ruling of silicon, okay, which is, of course, silicon is what computers run on, it's silicon, versus carbon-based life. And that his concern, Jeffrey Hinton, before Congress, is that this is a fight. Okay, it goes back to like people like Hugo de Garis, right, who wrote the Coming Art-Elect War. I've talked about it for years on this channel. Basically, the Coming Art-Elect War, that was about the between the Terrans and the Cosmos, where you'd have the augmented population, super addicted to technology and digital reality, would be fighting against the Terrans, who are people who refuse to be connected to that technology and want to be God-based, God-given DNA-based humans. Well, I wanted to bring up here something, and thank goodness for people like Jeffrey Hinton going before Congress and trying to expose the danger of what is AI, but also ASI, artificial superintelligence, and those, what could be the quantum human, which we already are before Christ and God. We are already a quantum. We're quantum. That's where we come from. We are literally God created quantum beings. But they want the digital quantum. They want to capture our humanness. And so what we get is we hear from Ukraine putting out this super, I think preemptive, I think just laying their cards out, saying that in Ukraine, we now are super, that's where all our taxpayer dollars are going, all of our taxpayer dollars to Ukraine in the, close to $200 billion now. But don't worry, JP Morgan just got $50 billion from the FDIC buying out First Republic. But Ukraine, with all of our billions, is that they are creating, as I've been saying forever, the perfect digital e-citizenship situation there in Ukraine. Okay, so for all the higher ups, all the elites that are enjoying their gold, plated facials and living the high life in the nightclubs, how is that going on in Ukraine? You don't hear about that when they're slaughtering everybody. But basically what they're doing in Ukraine is saying everything's digital. You can become an e-citizen and everything will be done with a few clicks. You just have to sign on to that e-citizenship and you just become a person who can, through your digital ID, can access everything instantly in Ukraine. And again, that's exactly what they've been pushing for, and now they're announcing it in Ukraine. And so I wanted to bring up here a cultural aside here, which has to do with this show that's been being really pushed on all streaming platforms, which is a show called Mrs. Davis. And I don't know if you've heard about it or seen it, but Mrs. Davis, it's on Peacock. I think Peacock stands for, NBC, the Peacock. Well, Mrs. Davis is a show that basically it's trying to show basically how it's predictive programming, and it is social engineering, of course, for people to give passive consent about connecting to an AI superintelligence new religion. And you can find it on your wherever, but go into it with a critical eye, because what's going on here with Mrs. Davis, and just so you know, the name Davis means son of David, okay, son of David, and Mrs. Davis in the show is an artificial intelligence, and that everybody's jacked into. They wear something in their ear, and they constantly listen to this AI that is called Mrs. Davis. So you have Mrs. Davis, Mrs., not Mr., Mrs. Davis, son of David. Okay, so you get this kind of transsexual woman voice in your ear, son of David, Mrs. Davis, who knows everything about everybody because it has learned everything because she's an artificial super intelligence, and she arrives and presents herself. And everybody starts listening, because at this point, it's kind of that point in society where nobody has anything to do. And they basically, what Mrs. Davis produces is quests for every individual to go on, knowing all of their data, all of their psychology, everything about them, to go and to give them quests that are tailored to their psychology, what they care about, and that she's going to give this to you. And it's an AI. And so you get this, the protagonist is a woman who is supposedly a nun, okay, and her name is, her original name is Elizabeth, and then she becomes Simone when she joins a convent after she gets an epiphany where she supposedly goes and meets Jesus, who apparently is an Indian, subcontinent Indian, okay, Indian as in India. And so there's all this, blasphemic, material. She comes to hate Jesus. It's all crazy town, but it's really predictive programming. But what's really important here is with this Mrs. Davis situation with the AI and this predictive programming, is they want you to jack into a situation where AI can tell you better than you know yourself what will make you happy. And if you go on these quests, you will earn digital wings. Okay, so these are digital wings that come and show on your back when you show up on a screen digitally. And the AI creates a hive mind with everybody attached to it, and everybody wants to be attached to it because they are happier, because they just love being told what to do and how to have a life plan if they go along with what Mrs. Davis tells them to do, the transsexual AI. And so basically they can never really earn their wings, but the only way you can earn them faster, okay, predictive programming, social engineering, is that Mrs. Davis will tell you, well, you can go join, get a digital tattoo. It's an inverted triangle, very much like a black triangle, very interesting Nazi-style black triangle to do with gay men in the Holocaust, which is so interesting because the whole Nazi regime was really based on a gay male pedophilia movement, which is, people don't know about this, but that's a whole aside. We'll get into it. People like Preciagate do such a good job on this, and I'll get into it in further videos, maybe some of it here more. But basically what happens is you can sign up to get your instant wings, okay, which makes you super popular right now. But what those instant wings cost you with your digital tattoo is that you have signed up to be euthanized, okay? It's a eugenics program. And so you expect that your euthanasia date will be long in the future. What people find is that, no, your euthanasia date is coming really quickly for you. And so it's all this predictive programming. Check it out, but with, serious like protection, because it is basically predictive programming and social engineering for people to deal with. And so I wanted to mention that. And I also wanted to mention the passing of a very interesting man called gerrymander, right? We think of gerrymandering, our voting registration areas, but no, gerrymander was a really amazing man, but very Democrat for sure. Maybe confused about some of his views, but he did really amazing things. And he's dead now at 86. He died in April, I think April 11th. But what's interesting about gerrymander that I wanted to mention on this video is that he wrote a couple of amazing books, and he got aware of how advertising and the social engineering of public relations, etc., was completely dumbing down and also brainwashing the population. And so gerrymander has passed away, and prayers for him. But basically, he wrote a couple of amazing books, which you could still read and get so much out of. Subliminal Seduction. I read it when I was a teenager. Subliminal Seduction, where basically he went to Wharton. He went to the Wharton School, UPenn. Graduated from there. He got into, I think, business for a while, but then went into advertising and went out to, he was in New York, born in the Bronx, 1936 or something. And then he goes out to San Francisco. He's working for advertising, and he realizes that this is like super creepy entrainment of the population. And so he comes out against it, and he actually comes out against globalism and forms like, think tanks to be anti-globalist. But he wrote Subliminal Seduction, and he also wrote something called 4 Arguments for the Elimination of Television. Because what he realized is that television, now read digital media, just read socials, everything that we're doing with this crazy technology super dumbs down the mind, and it super entrains the mind to be completely led. And he knew this way back then in the 60s. In the 70s, he wrote Subliminal Seduction. I think in the 70s he wrote 4 Arguments for the Elimination of Television. I think was later than that. But then he went and fought the World Trade Organization. He went to fight the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, basically saying we're being taken over by a tyrannical corporate regime. And globalism is the reason for it, that they're trying to come up with a global fascism. And so I wanted to honor gerrymander here because he was part of waking me up to what social media way back then was, which was just basically social engineering through these the way that advertising works, but also just how the news works, how universities work, how all of it comes down to the corporate control trying to take over the economy and then people's lives through brainwashing them. It's Nazism on steroids when we look at people, Freud's cousin, what's his name? The guy who wrote Propaganda. Well, that's who influenced Hitler so much. And Hitler was so influenced by what was really a pedophilic Thule society, which was based on pedophilia. We don't understand all of the history of what went into what is now this transgender takeover of human reproduction, takeover of human values, family values, all of it. This is something I'll get into more this week, but it's important to kind of understand that we've been dealing with, what used to be called back in Nazi days, the Wandervogel movement, which was, capture the children. Okay, it's what became the brown shirts later, or the Hitler Youth. But it literally was a gay male belief in the Superman, that basically that you become more of a warrior, capable of dominating society if you commit pedophilia. People don't know this about the Nazi regime. They don't understand that this was primarily a gay male pedophilic regime. And it gets into so much that went into what has become the sexual grooming ever since really the 1920s. Okay, it's such a long story, and I'll get into it in further videos. But it is, you can, I'll link it below, Prussiagate.com, or I'll link it below. But basically, where you get a whole society of people that are bent on being against the family, pretty much being against women, okay, being against mothering, being against family units, and how to create a super race of men that can dominate the world. And I know that sounds, kind of out there, but it actually isn't. That's what Nazism was based on. And, then when they went and arrested so many of the homosexuals in Germany, because after World War I, there was that massive influx of huge, a gay underground. It wasn't even underground at that point. It was actually just really huge, but there was a huge, massive pedophilia movement. And so we had the Nazis go and kill so many of actually the gays that could identify them as being involved in this pedophilia situation. It's just reality. It's true. And I will be talking about it more in coming weeks. But if you look at the Thule Society starting in 1917, you look at where it came out of. We're gonna get into it. It was basically how to turn against the Judeo-Christian values. Again, that was the part of the going against the criminalizing of the Jews in Germany. But it really was about going back to the Roman, Greek, the Grecian, Uranian views of pedophilia, of that you get your power through having sex with kids. And that's what we're seeing now, so hard and heavy, this push to have sex with kids. We see Chelsea Clinton going and pushing this book on her tour across country of genderqueer, right? Where they are literally part of that book in genderqueer is children having sex with adults. We get it in the Oregon Bill 2002, and the Washington Bill, the Colorado Bill. They're pushing it now in Minnesota. They're pushing it in Rhode Island. They're pushing it everywhere under this safe space for trans. which really is about we can disappear your child and take away your parental rights, okay, and connect that with the Secure Border Act, with the disappearance of 100,000 children across the border, the modern slave trade. And this is what we have. We have a fucking crazy people, pardon my F, but like literal pedos, okay, with a giant satanic background, coming after children, creating a giant slave trade, wanting to connect with some uber-mentioned alien satanic entity, Lucifer, okay, and doing it in front of our faces, and everybody's fighting so hard against it. And my giant prayers and blessings go to everybody who's getting out there for every single one of these bills and doing the heavy lifting to resist them, because we are literally under assault. And so as I move on from there, I want to, just maybe touch in about a couple things that Trump said the other day. We're all wondering, where's Trump at? What's his thinking? And I have to say, last Thursday, this is a very interesting situation. So, after my video last Wednesday, on Thursday, Trump went to Manchester, New Hampshire. It was the next day. He was just there in Manchester, New Hampshire, talking about some pretty heavy lifting. And so it's all very interesting. He comes out with his letters from Trump, TrumpBooks45.com or Trump45.com. But anyway, he comes out with his book with all these letters, these love letters of people who've loved him forever. Bill Clinton, Rosie O'Donnell, all these people that hate him like fire now, and all of his weird stuff in connection with them. But it's very interesting that he goes to New Hampshire last Thursday, Manchester, belly of the beast, right? When you look at Mike Gill and everything about the, $970 billion of trafficking money going through New Hampshire. We also have Kristi Noem coming out and saying, I might run for 24 president, out of South Dakota, where there's another $270 billion of trafficking stuff mentioned by Mike Gill coming out of there. And so, what's going on here? And so, we have this strange thing where Trump keeps showing up in New Hampshire lately. Don't remember that happening so much before. Now he's in New Hampshire all the time. Last Thursday, there he is in Manchester, okay, where the private bank is, right? We have private bank now funding something to do with hydrogen. I'll get into that later. But, I want to talk about this for a second. We had Trump coming out, praising Corey Lewandowski there in New Hampshire, Manchester, New Hampshire, last Thursday. Super raucous crowd, really raucous. We get 50 legislators out of New Hampshire endorsing him, and we know he has all the Mike Gill information, right? He has it all. He's got everything. Mike Gill's full testimony, all of everything that he's presented, he's given to Trump. And so Trump knows about all the trafficking. He knows about the Pandora cartel. He knows about all of it. And so basically what Trump starts out his speech saying is, I will be retiring the name for Hillary Clinton, Crooked Hillary, okay? It's so weird. I'm going to retire this name, Crooked Hillary, and I'm going to reassign that name, Crooked, to Joe Biden. So I'm not going to say Crooked Hillary anymore. I might call her beautiful. I might call her lovely. Isn't this interesting? In New Hampshire, we know that, what I was talking about in last week and everybody's interviews they've done with Mike Gill, the Clintons' money very interconnected here with this laundering scheme, massive laundering scheme to do with New Hampshire, but also for entertainment purposes only, Biden's massive laundering. And we get in, of course, now with Hunter Biden's daughter, Navy, right? With the ex-hooker who's now, or the ex-dancer who is getting $20,000 a month from him, trying to say he wants to lower those payments. but they're using that Arkansas legal case to go after all of his financials. I mean, it just keeps digging a hole here, right? And so basically, Trump says, "I'm going to go after. I'm going to call Joe Biden Crooked Joe, and we're going to take that away from Hillary. And now I'm going to call her lovely or beautiful." And to me, that seems like a way of putting into a political speech a messaging of some kind. I'm pretty sure that's how they do it. They put out their political speeches and they communicate that way, right? And so we get him saying to Hillary, "We're going to call you beautiful and lovely now. And now we're going to say that Joe is the crooked one." And so what does that mean? You know, what does it mean? You let me know in the comments below. Does it mean that, do we have cooperation with all the Pandora, Mike Gill information? You know, what's going on here? You know, is it just a media farce? Or is there something being said here where he's, flipping the crooked onto Joe? I think it's interesting. I think it's significant. And I'm going to keep following up. And so I think it's important to say what also he said. You know, there's a lot of very interesting things here that he said, which were things like, we're going to establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, basically to out all of the deep state government players, the SESers, which he had said, he literally said, senior executive service, about a month ago. And now he's saying we're going to establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission when he's back in office for being 47. Interesting. We've been talking about truth and reconciliation for a long time, and now he's literally saying that during a speech in the belly of the beast there in Manchester, New Hampshire, down the street from Private Bank. He says basically there's way more dead in Ukraine than you even know about. He says the trafficking is hugely about women and girls. And believe me, it's all children, but very interesting. He says, you don't even have an idea what's going on in Ukraine. It's so bad. He says, I'll end it in 24 hours. You put me in office. Very interesting stuff here. We get that him saying that he's going to investigate every attorney general in the USA when he's put back in. And again, I'm just looking at it all. I'm trying to figure it out, right? We had the Attorney General Paxton, just for an aside, coming out basically going after Moderna and Pfizer for malicious intent using, let me see if I can find it here, I had it somewhere. Oh yeah. Yeah, that we get Paxton going after Pfizer and Moderna, investigation and potential violations of what's called the state's Texas, Deceptive Trade Practices Act. Okay? The Deceptive Trade Practices Act by Pfizer and Moderna, that they were deceptive in what they led people to believe about their vaccines, and that they used social engineering or whatever, false advertising to push them. And that they will, that Paxton, who we love, I mean, AG out of Texas, we do love him, that he's going for it. And so that basically, that the widespread implications for the legal immunity granted to the manufacturers of these vaccines for the V basically open the door to massive class action suits, okay? And basically, class action suits are what we need hugely for the damages and the deaths. But so interesting. I will go after and basically vet all of the AGs in the USA to make sure that they are following the Constitution and the rule of law. He says that he is going to, this is Trump now, basically we're going to wage war on the drug cartels. We had a company, Arizona, so corrupt, right? So taken over by the cartels, bribing the judges for entertainment purposes only, bribing everybody controlling, killing Kari Lake's run, the takeover, the fake AG there, all of it. Well, basically, he's saying we're gonna run serious wage war on the cartels at the border and in our government. And he basically says also that he's going to make sure that every single person in the federal government has to go through a new civics test and oath. That every single person that is in the government, in the federal government, will have to pass a civics test and take a new oath. I think that's very interesting. He says there'll be national concealed carry rights to everybody. Trump says that they will basically be cutting all funding to all institutions that are pushing CRT and transgenderism, favoritism. Basically, that parents will be able to elect their own school principals and officials. They're the people that are in charge of the administration. And he says no to any vaccine mandates. So it's very interesting. To me, the most interesting thing is the situation where Trump is saying we're going to have a new Truth and Reconciliation Council, a commission, to basically, when he says I'm going to go out and root everybody out of the federal government, the deep state, well, yeah, a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Somebody's in his ear. I mean, he's hearing about it. He's saying the right things. And so it's very interesting. And so I'll leave that there. There's much more to say. I think that the comments about Hillary and the shifting to Biden, I think are a messaging situation. I want to find out more about that. But I did want to just mention here before I go, the situation with Teixeira, right? We get that kid, right, who was arrested for supposedly leaking all of that information to do with all the information out of the Ukraine, and that there's multiple more casualties than they're saying, that there is massive amounts of spying going on by the U.S. government against our allies, all of it. Well, yeah, the reality is that Joint Base Air National Guard Base on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, that there are 1,200 service members and civilians that are maintaining support systems for Pentagon drone missions around the world. Right? You don't hear about it. We heard the other day that there were 2 supervisors or higher ups that were suspended. Their names are withheld. Teixeira is still, confined in jail. But this has to do with drone activity and drone activity in the Ukraine. And so in the Ukraine, you get apparently Joint Base Cape Cod, Massachusetts, has to do with a connection with Ramstein military base in Germany. And Ramstein is literally dealing with the drone strikes going on in Ukraine and the drone warfare that is basically controlling what's going on in Ukraine to do with the military strikes. And so this kid, very interesting, connected with his father, Dufault, who was, it's a funny name, Dufault, but his stepfather was held the same position that he's holding now, but not anymore, obviously. But I wanted to talk about this a little bit. So Ramstein military base is supported by the 102nd Intelligence Wing of the Joint Air Base, Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And so they're like, well, why does such a young service member have access to, such sensitive military, intelligence? Basically, he's an IT guy, making sure everything's running right. But something happened here where basically they're in charge of, massive satellite communication networks. And what you'd have going on there is the Distributed Common Ground System. That's called the Distributed Common Ground System. It's a vast computer network that handles the the immense amounts of data generated by surveillance drones, spy satellites, and other sensors. Okay, so you get what's called the DCGS, all right, top secret information generating system to do with drone warfare. So all of there's multiple bases, okay, dealing with drone warfare, and it turns out that where Teixeira, where this guy was living, Alex Teixeira, where he was working at this joint base, was dealing with drone warfare, and that he somehow was privy to it. But it all looks very fishy for why they're trying to leak all this out. So the system started small, but it's just 3 Air Force bases. It started with Langley in Virginia, okay, the CIA, and then it was Beale in California, Beale base, and then Osan in South Korea. But then it ran into Ramstein, okay, in Germany, and that's when you got, and also Hickam in Honolulu. But basically what happened was they closed a bunch of the bases way back in the day, and they then reassigned all of the air base, the Air Force National Guard, guardsmen who were on the air guard duty. They reassigned them to become people who were connecting with drone warfare. So they'd be talking to people who doing drone warfare in lifetime across the world. The people who were actually working the drones, who were doing the drone assassinations, doing the drone hits, all of it connected with multiple bases. And it looks like this guy, this kid, was working at that one where they were working with Ramstein out of that base there in Germany, that had to do specifically with drone warfare going on in Ukraine, exposing that the numbers dead are massive, way more than we're being told, that all of it, the spying, all of it. So I wanted to just bring that up and let you know about that. And I might leave it there, folks. That's enough for today. It's good to be back with you again. I so appreciate your support. And, we put on this armor. We just keep going. It's been like a crazy, kind of intense few weeks here. I think we got through Beltane. Let's pray for all maybe the children and the people who didn't get through it. And we just, we keep fighting that fight. We keep putting on that helmet of salvation. We make ourselves known, right? To the Prince of Peace, that we are here, warriors, we are instruments for the ongoing fight towards those gates of hell. Because as we look at the demonic AI, as we look at the gaslighters in our media, as we look at all the liars and the people wanting to confuse us, we just put on that truth. We that helmet of salvation is truth, just constantly feeding into you. And just make yourself an instrument, just completely commit. And we know that people are waking up in the millions. Nobody believes them anymore. Nobody is as easily confused or easily, gaslighted as they used to be. We are humanity waking up, and we are free. So I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to support the channel, there's ways to do so below. Always appreciated. And thanks again to everybody for supporting in April. And congratulations to Werner and Rev. This antioxidant is an incredible antioxidant. c60evo.com/YAFTV. Use the code YAFTV for 10% off. Contribute to the channel, get 15% off, and literally clean out your DNA. Because as Jeffrey Hinton was saying from Google, they're trying to create a silicon-based reality here on planet Earth. And planet Earth was created and given to us by God and will not be taken over by a silicon. So clean out your DNA, get healthy, get righteous, and we are free. I'll see you next time.